Yep. Inside, I want to kill myself. We are on an 0-7 run over the last 2 days. After tonight was just complete bullshit. So that's how I'm going to start off this show. Horrible Sunday, 1-5. I don't even know what to tell you about that. I just don't want to do this anymore. I have never seen anything like this, man. With the slump continuing, 2 straight losses, not a good day at all. 0-4. I just have not had a good season, man. What can this slump that I'm on? The slump continues. I've reached a new peak, actually. I'm gonna burn my Bruins hat, man. I don't know what is going on with the Bruins. March 8th, is that what it is? I don't even know. It's March 9th, I think. Who even knows, man? I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't even know what day it is anymore, man. Back with you after the worst day that I could possibly have. Back with you, as I always am. Until I die, at least. 0-2 yesterday, and yesterday did not go well for me. 0-5. The worst month that I've ever had in my 18 years doing this. I don't know what to even tell you about this anymore. Broke the slump yesterday as the slump discontinues. The slump continues. Somebody fucking kill me, please. I don't even know what I should do at this point other than potentially end it all. What's up, everybody? It's Toad back with you with Toadstool Sports. It is Sunday. It's March, baby. March 1st. March Madness. Can we officially say that March Madness has started? I would say no, because I would say that it officially starts when the conference tournaments start. I consider that to be March Madness, and that will happen shortly. I think sometimes it actually happens before March even starts, depending on how the calendar works out, but it will be starting soon, man. We had a pretty good day on the show yesterday. 4-2-1. Started out not great with Buffalo losing outright. I don't know really what to say about that. I mean, yeah, they weren't really in position to cover that thing. It was a close game, but we needed them to win by points. Then things started turning around nicely. We got the outright win with Bellarmine. They put up like 111 points. I mean, that's kind of what Bellarmine does. They just, even though they're a slow team, they score decently, and they can't stop anybody. But they were able to get the outright win there. Good spot. Bryant with an outright win as well over the absolute fraudulent NJIT. Finally, we get a win, fading NJIT. Pretty easy one there. And Bryant was up to about a 3.5 point dog in that one. I don't know if it ever actually hit 4. I will score to 3.5, but it doesn't matter because they won outright. Arizona got the win. They were winning by double digits at halftime, and then I think the lead did slip at one point to below the 9.5, but they got back above it. They wound up pushing the lead to almost 20 pretty late in the game, and then it was pretty much over. I don't know how much they actually won by, like 17 maybe, something like that. So Arizona covered every number, so that worked out well. Even if you laid the 10.5, although, again, you want to get the best number. It did matter in Virginia Tech, which shouldn't have. Virginia Tech was tied at halftime, dude, and they were still in that game. In the closing minutes, I think they were still down not that many points. Then all of a sudden, they're down like 8, 9. I'm like, this is just such BS, dude. Then they wind up scoring, I think, right near the buzzer to push the number at 7. I'm not happy about it. That should have been a cover. North Carolina is still a massively overrated team. I'm not happy. People who got the 6.5 didn't get it, so hopefully you got the 7. I saw 7s fairly abundantly out there, and that's what I scored it at. We did not get the win in hockey with Columbus, which actually I had it minus 134, not minus 130, so my mistake, but close in that range. But you don't want to lose a favorite like that, man. So, yeah, it was a winning day yesterday, of course, 4-2-1, whatever. But because the moneyline favorite was a loss, that was a little bit more of a loss than most other plays would have been. Columbus had a 2-0 lead out of the gate, and I'm like, all right, this is looking pretty good. They played fine in the game. They lost the face-off battle, but they did have more shots in the game. I think they might have been the more physical team as well, had more hits, and they wound up losing the game in overtime. Not happy about that at all. Definitely had chances to win that game, especially when you're up 2-0. Don't blow the lead. And they were actually behind 3-2 at one point in the game. Not happy about that. And then the Washington Wizards did actually get us the cover there. They were winning the game outright at halftime. And then things started going very badly for them. Even though I think in the fourth quarter, I'm pretty sure they were still within 4 points, like early in the fourth quarter. And then all of a sudden they're down by like 16. And I'm like, are you serious? They're actually not going to cover this? But they did. They lost by 9. So I don't know. I didn't watch any of that game, but I don't know what happened at the end of it. But maybe who did we even play against in that game? I don't even remember. Who was that play against? I don't remember at all. Whoever it was, they must have taken their foot off the gas, though. Because, yeah, we got the cover with the Wizards there. Yeah, why don't I remember who that was against? Now I got to look real quick. That was, Houston, yeah. No, Toronto, my mistake. Yeah, Toronto. I'm like, wait, Houston, that's not right. Yeah, Toronto. All right, let's get into today. We got some plays today. We're going to have 2 college basketball, 1 hockey, 2 NBA. The NBA ones are actually both pretty much the same, kind of. They're both some nice sandwiches, man. We got some NBA sandwiches. Mr. Pinsley, what's up? Thanks for hanging out. Good to see you again. All right, college basketball. We're coming down the stretch, man. This is the last, I don't want to call it the last full weekend, but it's the last, well, it's kind of the last full weekend because the small conference tournaments are going to be starting this week, man. It's going to be fun. And then the big conferences still have one more Saturday left to play, I think, before their conference tournaments start. But yes, we have some noontime action here. Sunday, we always have afternoon action. It's almost all afternoon action. Some night action, actually, tonight, because no football. But LaSalle at Davidson gets a TV game on USA Network. They carry the Atlantic 10. I don't know why anybody's going to want to watch this game. LaSalle is a very bad team. I believe that every team in the Atlantic 10 does make their conference tournament, so I don't think there's any issue there. LaSalle did just get bombed by George Washington, who couldn't get it done for us. But it was the Revolutionary War. George Washington against LaSalle. Yeah, it was the LaSalle, the Frenchmen, turning on the Americans. America won that battle. George Washington with a huge win, putting up over 100 points, blowing LaSalle out. Maybe LaSalle will bounce back a little bit here in this one. Davidson has been an okay team this year. They had a nice road win against Duquesne in their last game. This will not be their final home game. I don't really have a good read on this at all. These teams have not played this season. This is their only matchup this year. Davidson's an 11-point favorite, and they have 71% of tickets and 94% of the cash on them. I don't think I would lay it, though. I mean, LaSalle is so bad. The total's pretty low in the 130s. I mean, I don't think I would lay it, but also LaSalle is so bad, I should say. But I would probably lean towards taking it with LaSalle if I was going to do anything with that game. But I will not, obviously. ESPN2 at noon. Tulane is at South Florida. South Florida trying to establish themselves here. They are close to getting the 1 seed in the American right now. 3 games left. They have a 1.5 game lead. They're playing against what I think is an overrated Tulane team here. South Florida's on a run. They've won 6 games in a row. They're back home. It is possible that they overlook Tulane, I guess. They have Memphis on deck, which is always kind of a big name. But Memphis is just having so many struggles this year that I don't know that it's really a look ahead. South Florida beat Rice on the road in their last game, I think, which is nothing to really look at all. Tulane coming into this off of getting absolutely crushed by Tulsa in their last game, so they may very well get up for this game as well. I can't really read this game. I don't really have anything to really go on with this game except for the market read. South Florida's a 15-point favorite. 65% of the tickets are on them, 54% of the cash on Tulane. So the market read is saying Tulane, so if you want to take that for, anything that it's worth, I guess. I mean, it's worth something, I think. These market reads kind of give you some information there about where the actual money is coming in, even though it doesn't really tell you why that's the case. But it could just be that numbers guys just think that the line's a little bit too high in South Florida. Maybe it is because, they have the better record, so the line might have to be pushed in their direction a little bit, especially on a big TV game. So I won't really disagree with leaning towards the underdog in that one too, but nothing for me there. North Texas at UAB is on ESPNU at noon. this is kind of a more interesting game, I would say. North Texas I think they played UAB earlier this year, did they? Yeah, they did. They lost at home to UAB. So this is actually a road revenge angle for North Texas, or it might be the case that maybe UAB just won't really take them as seriously after beating them at home. North Texas was actually the favorite at home. They will be an underdog here, of course. North Texas did just lose to Charlotte, which is not a great loss. Charlotte, not a good team, not as good as their record looks. UAB is better than Charlotte, though. And this will be a second straight road game here. UAB just beat Memphis on the road. That was a nice win for UAB. Even though I know Memphis massively struggling, that was an upset. UAB were 5.5-point dogs in that one. They won by double digits. That was a strong win for them, man. Given that they already beat North Texas, this will not be their final home game. I'm going to lean to North Texas in this one. The money is not agreeing with me on this. UAB up to a 5.5-point favorite. 50-50 on the tickets, 75% of the cash on UAB. I like how the first, actual opinion that I have of any real sort goes against the market. Isn't that just great? The total's pretty low. North Texas, we know they play just extraordinarily slow, so they may be able to slow this game down and really ugly it up and stay within that number that way. It might be an interesting game to watch, even though North Texas is kind of like watching paint dry. But they do play in a lot of close games, though. Fox Sports 1 at noon, Rutgers at Maryland. Yeah, this is a great Big Ten matchup here. I believe every team in the Big Ten makes the Big Ten tournament, so there's no issue as far as which team might not make the tournament. Rutgers coming off a home loss to Washington. Maybe it'll be good for them to just get out, go on the road again. Playing a Maryland team, it's not exactly good, although it's 3 road games and 4 games for Rutgers, which is not that easy. Maryland just lost at Nebraska. That was a more difficult game, though. They finished the season with Wisconsin and then Illinois, which are probably bigger games at this point. Maryland is the favorite here, 5-point favorite, but I mean, the odds makers are telling you Maryland's the better team here. But, man, I mean, I don't know, man. Should Maryland really be this much of a favorite against, anybody else in the Big Ten? I really don't know. I would probably lean towards taking the points with Rutgers. I don't love it, but, 71% of tickets, 73% of the cash on Maryland. They look like kind of a public side, not a ton of the money coming in. They don't have a huge cash disparity on them is what I mean to say. I'm staying away, though. Quinnipiac at Canisius is a pretty weird one. This will be Canisius' final home game, though. And remember, they're not going to be in the MAAC tournament as the bottom 3 teams do not make their conference tournament. And that would be Canisius, Niagara, Rider. So those teams, keep in mind, I think they're all playing their final game today. So, and they might all be at home, too. So I will say that is an extra motivator. And I'll point it out now because I forgot to talk about it yesterday, and I said I was going to, and I completely forgot. The Northeast Conference had an interesting scenario yesterday with New Haven, had their final home game, and they did actually win that game. And I would have given you a lean on New Haven. Wasn't going to make my card, but New Haven, they're in their first year in Division I, and there's a transition period. So when you're in transition, that first year, you're not allowed in the NCAAB tournament, but you're also not allowed to play in your conference tournament. Although I think maybe different conferences have different rules, but New Haven, that was literally their last game of the year because they're a first-year Division I team. I know it's stupid because if you're good enough, I mean, I think you should, be given a shot, like playing your conference tournament, Most teams in that conference make their tournament. But whatever, that's how it is. It's stupid, but that was their final game of the season, so you got to think that was a bit of an extra motivator there. You get to do it at home. I forget who they played, but they did get a win. I think it might have been a revenge spot, too, so I was going to point that out, and I forgot. The Northeast Conference is very strange because they have multiple teams that are in transition right now, which include Mercyhurst and Lemoyne. But those 2 teams are different because those 2 teams are not in their first year of transition. So they are actually going to play in the Northeast Conference tournament, but they're not allowed to play in the NCAA tournament. So they're in that scenario. We've seen that scenario a couple times recently where we've had a team that makes their conference final in the conference tournament, but they're in their second or third year of transition. And they're in a position where if they win that game, they're not allowed to make the tournament. You know what I mean? So their opponent, or however the conference structure works, whoever is going to represent that conference in the NCAA tournament is already decided pretty much prior to that game. I think unless the eligible team wins, if that makes sense, you know what I mean? Because obviously, if the one team that's eligible wins, they're allowed to get in. So that always set up like an interesting scenario for me, where I think it depends. Because I think because one team is ineligible, then I think if the eligible team wins, I think it doesn't even matter if the eligible team wins. Yeah, that's what it was. Because every time that scenario comes up, I give out a play. And it might happen in the Northeast Conference this year, but that play is always on the ineligible team in their conference final because that's their last game. If they can't make the NCAA tournament, they want to prove something like, hey, we're actually good enough. We can win this game. We should be in. Whereas the team that they're playing is usually already in, regardless of if they win that game or not, if that makes sense. So there are a lot of weird scenarios that show up in some of these smaller conferences, but I figured I would point that out. Anyway, Quinnipiac is at Canisius. It is Canisius' final game of the season. They're not making the conference tournament, so this is it for them. Quinnipiac, though, they are still playing for something. Unlike MAAC, who has the conference wrapped up, Quinnipiac is in this mix here where they could change their seeding a little bit. I think they might still have a shot to get one of the top 4 seeds in the conference, which I think would give them an extra bye in the conference tournament or something, so they probably do want to play for that. They had a bad game in their last game against Niagara, so that might actually spur them. So they might actually have some momentum here, or some motivation here, because Quinnipiac, they have something to play for in this game. Canisius probably does too. I mean, it's their final home game, but I think they kind of treated that MAAC game like their Super Bowl. They caught MAAC at a great time because MAAC was traveling out to Buffalo. I think the MAAC doesn't pay for flights either. So I think every team in this conference has to take a bus everywhere. So that makes it even worse. And MAAC having the conference already wrapped up, they had nothing to play for. And I think Canisius really got excited about that game. Hey, we get a chance to beat the top seed in the conference. Let's do it. So they won. But now that could put them in a little bit of a letdown spot, man. Even though I know this is their final home game, it seems like they kind of treated the MAAC game as their big game. And they're running into a Quinnipiac team that, even though Quinnipiac beat them already at Quinnipiac, Quinnipiac does have something to play for. So I don't really want Canisius here. The money is still saying Canisius is the right side. Quinnipiac, 8-point favorite, 91% of the tickets, 52% of the cash. This is a massive ticket versus cash disparity there. So there's no way that I would recommend laying it with Quinnipiac. I would probably still lean to taking the points with Canisius. Final home game, final game of the season again, because, they're not playing in the conference tournament. So I would probably still take the points with a team that is in that scenario and the revenge scenario. But I'm just saying Quinnipiac does have something to play for, though. But probably, because they're a pretty big road favorite. Fading them probably still is the move in that game, but it's not something I want to actually do. CBS at 1:30 p.m. Number 8, Purdue is at Ohio State. Purdue is coming off a pretty big game against Michigan State where they lost the game, and now everybody's kind of trashing Purdue because they have 4 home losses this year, which I think is the most they've had in probably over a decade. And whatever Purdue team did that the last time was nowhere near as good as this Purdue team is. So it is kind of crazy that Purdue has lost this many games at home. Although I think if you look at what they are, they're against really good teams, though. Iowa State, Illinois, Michigan, and Michigan State. I mean, none of those teams are bad in any way. Those are all going to be top 4 seeds in the tournament. So it's I don't know. You mentioned that Purdue has 4 home losses, and they probably should have gotten at least one win out of those games. So those are legit teams, man. All of them. But Purdue is now coming off that big game against Michigan State. They got to go out on the road. It was a close, tough game against Michigan State. Ohio State is on the bubble, and they're going to be a home underdog here. So I think you got to lean to Ohio State in this one. They've lost 2 games in a row. They're coming off kind of a blowout loss, if you want to call it that, at Iowa. It was a decent spot for Iowa there because Ohio State had this big game on deck, and they had played Wisconsin and Michigan State the 2 games prior to that, winning against Wisconsin and then playing Michigan State really close. But Ohio State going to be a home dog here, in the better spot and playing for, their tournament lives pretty much. So I would lean to taking the points with Ohio State here. This would really bolster their resume if they were able to get this win. Purdue is up to a 6-point favorite, 77% of tickets, 90% of the cash on them. But Purdue is going to be the public side here. If the public plays this game, they'll be laying it with Purdue. I would not do that. I would take the points, regardless of what that cash disparity says right now. I lean Ohio State in that one. A lot of leans towards home teams in some of these, including this one, ESPN2 at 2 p.m. Murray State is at Bradley. This will be an interesting one because these two teams are basically, this is the second place game in the Missouri Valley here. This is the battle to get the 2 seed pretty much. Although Illinois-Chicago is in the mix, I don't think they can get it because Murray State and Bradley are tied with each other and have the tiebreaker over UIC. So whichever team wins this game will get the number 2 seed in the Missouri Valley, I believe, because this is the final game for them. So it does also mean that it is the final home game for Bradley. So that's going to be a big deal as well. Murray State just ended their losing streak with a win over a very bad Evansville team in Murray State's final home game. But now they got to go on the road, play Bradley. They did beat Bradley by 20 points at home. So we might have a bit of a revenge angle here, or whatever you want to call it. Bradley might be able to make the adjustments here because Bradley is not that bad. And the fact that they're favored here, I think the public is going to probably want to take Murray State, looking at the records here, like, oh, Murray State actually has a slightly better record, and you're giving me 4.5 points here. And Murray State, everybody kind of knows they're a fast team. They play offense, whatever. If people watch them or look at their final scores, they're kind of an appealing team to play from the public's perspective, but I would not do that here. Bradley did just lose to Illinois-Chicago. Not a great loss, but now they're back at home. I think it sets up a lot better for them here in this one. The line looks a little bit strange on it. I would lay it with Bradley in this one if I was going to play it. Bradley, 4.5 here. 70% of the tickets, 97% of the cash on them. So the money is indicating on Bradley a little bit there, and I agree with it. All right, we have a lot of American action today. It's mostly American and a MAAC. And a lot of these games are just not that interesting. Rider, my mistake. Rider is actually on the road. So Rider, I believe they actually already won. Yeah, they won their final home game against Niagara. They just got blown out by Iona. So they're playing their last 2 games in upstate New York, I guess is what this is. Or it's somewhere in New York north of the city. Let's just put it that way. Rider finishes their season here with Siena. This will be Rider's last game. So I think they might get up for it. Because, again, they're not playing in the conference tournament, so they might get up for this. Siena might not take them seriously because they beat them already, only by 9, but it was at Rider. So Siena already beat them on the road. This is Siena's final home game, though, and Siena does have something to play for because they are in the mix in the MAAC, playing for one of the seeds here. If they win, they're going to be guaranteed one of the top 4 seeds at least. But when that's the case, sometimes you have to lay too many points with a team like that because they know we win, we get a top 4 seed, They're coming off a pretty bad loss, though, to Fairfield. That wasn't a great loss for Siena, so they may very well show up in this one, and it is their final home game, which usually is a boost. But the money is coming in on Rider. Siena's down to a 15.5-point favorite, and do you really want to lay 15.5? I know how bad Rider is, but 15.5 with a total of 137 seems like a lot of points to try to cover here, man. Like, I don't think Siena's going to lose this game, but covering is a totally different story. 82% of the tickets are on them, 58% of the cash on Rider. I'll agree with the Rider side in that one. I mean, Rider is not playing again after this, so they have pretty much every reason to just go all out, right? Like, in a game like that, it's your last game, right? Like, everything is on the table. You can take huge risks. You can do ridiculous things. You're not really worried about injuries anymore at that point. You just do whatever you want, you know what I mean? So you get to play super, super loose if you're in Rider's case there, whereas Siena, has a little bit of something to play for, so that might mean they're playing a little bit more tight butthole there, you know what I mean? Which isn't good when you're trying to cover a huge number like that as a favorite. Kyle, what's up? Thanks for hanging out. All right. Then, of course, Merrimack is at Niagara. There's no way that I would lay the points with Merrimack. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous that, dude, like we see like what happens with these teams, right? Like we saw North Dakota State just got absolutely run out of the building by St. Thomas the other day because North Dakota State had nothing to play for because they're already the 1 seed. Merrimack is already the 1 seed in this conference. They had nothing to play for, and they lost to Canisius. You see a scenario like this, like why? Like the odds makers, well, I guess because they have to split the action, the odds makers have to make them the favorite, I guess, because they basically know, like, you know, if they make the line really low on Merrimack, they pretty much know they're going to get lopsided action on Merrimack. But you'd think they would be okay with that because, like, Merrimack is in a horrible, like, Merrimack has no motivation here. You know what I mean? And maybe after an ugly loss to Canisius, maybe they'll play for some sense of pride. I mean, maybe kind of this thing like, hey, we don't want to go into the conference tournament on a losing note. I guess you could make that argument, but there's no way that I would lay it with them in this game, even though they're at Niagara, bad team. But again, Merrimack, they've already wrapped up the conference 1 seed, so they don't have anything to play for here. And they did just lose a long win streak. And, you know, I talk about that. When a team loses a long win streak, sometimes they're hung over into the next game, which I mentioned with Austin P in one of my winners yesterday. So that scenario is kind of going on with Merrimack as well here. They have not played Niagara this year. This will be Niagara's last game, and it's at home. So they might get up for this, but they did just beat Quinnipiac. So that was a big game for them, too. They pulled off the upset. Like, do they have it in them to pull off 2 straight upsets to finish the season? I don't know, but again, Merrimack, they literally have nothing to play for here, unless you think that they really care about the fact they lost to Canisius. Merrimack down from 8.5 to 8 here. I would take the points with Niagara in that one, but I think fading Merrimack in the Canisius game was probably the preferable of those 2 games. Like, now that Merrimack has lost that game, I think this game is less appealing, even though it is Niagara's final home game. So I didn't realize that the setup would kind of be like that, but I should have given out Canisius the other day. Very close. I talked about it. ESPNU at 2 p.m., St. Peter's and Marist. This game gets TV billing because this is like sort of the second place game in the MAAC. St. Peter's has a 1-game lead over Marist and Siena. Marist has the tiebreaker against Siena. So St. Peter's, they're in a position where if they win this game, they wrap up the 2 seed in the MAAC. But, you know, it's not that easy, man. When you know that and that's in your head, hey, all we got to do is win this game. That's all we have to do. It's almost like you start taking that a little bit like lightly almost. You know what I mean? Like, all we have to do is win. So I like it when a team needs help rather than controlling their own destiny. Now, St. Peter's just beat Manhattan. That's a whatever win. That was an easy win. They're playing Marist here. Like I said, Marist kind of flies under the radar because they're never a good team, but they are pretty good this year. St. Peter's already beat them at St. Peter's by 10. Now they're on the road against them. So I think this game lines up a little bit better for Marist to me. Marist just beat Sacred Heart by 2 points. So they're coming off kind of a close call, man. Marist were 7.5-point favorites in this game, and they almost lost the game. So I think they will show up in this one. I think they probably might have been looking ahead already to this game, not taking Sacred Heart seriously, who they already beat on the road. You know, they might have been looking ahead to this game because they knew this game would be a bigger game. So I like that from Marist because they got a bit of a scare. Now they're in revenge mode here. It's their final home game. St. Peter's is in a position where they control their own destiny. People are going to look at this. The public's probably going to want well, I don't know if they're going to want St. Peter's or not because they do have the better conference record. So they are above Marist in the standings, yet they're an underdog here. But they're an underdog for a reason. I mean, first of all, Marist is at home. But second of all, I think St. Peter's is the most overrated team in this conference. If you look at Ken Bum's numbers, they're not even inside the top 200. They're probably like the 4th best team in this conference behind Merrimack, Siena, and Marist, I believe. So I would lean to Marist in this one, and the money seems like it is agreeing. The number's going up a little bit to 3.5 with juice, 52% of the tickets, 99% of the cash on them. I don't know if that cash percentage is accurate, but the setup is better, I think, for Marist as well. I would lay it with Marist if I was going to play it. Northern Iowa and Drake is kind of an interesting scenario. We get the Drake again here, man. Now, this is an Iowa rivalry game, so there are some conflicting things here. Drake is already locked into the 11 seed in the Missouri Valley tournament. Drake cannot improve their position, and they cannot fall below their position. So conference seeding-wise, they have nothing to play for. But because this is a rival, because Northern Iowa is usually the better team in Iowa, and Drake already lost to them by 24 points on the road, and this is Drake's final home game, and Drake has lost 8 straight games or something like that, I think Drake will actually still show up in this game, even though they can't, change their seeding or whatever. You don't want to go into the conference tournament losing 9 straight, you know what I mean? And this is a rivalry game and your final home game. So I actually think Drake does have motivation in this game. Northern Iowa is coming off a tough game against Illinois State where they lost. Very big game, actually. So I actually like Drake in this game. Northern Iowa's a 4-point favorite here. 72% of tickets, 79% of the cash. I know Northern Iowa's playing for some seeding here. They're trying to, they're jockeying for seeding in the tournament right now. But they're a very defensive team, man. And asking a team like that to lay points on the road like that, I don't love that idea. And they look like kind of a public side. So, yeah, I would take the points with Drake. It might be the one scenario where I lean to a team that doesn't have anything to play for in their conference standings because they have other things that I think they have to play for in this one. All right, I still have 2 plays, like I said, and they're both TV games, and one is the next one up. Let's do this. We're going to take Indiana, and this is one where I would say find the best number that you can on this because 2.5 is, I think it's a little dicey. Like, I would rather have 3.5 here, which I think is a more appropriate line too, but I love the spot for Indiana here. I would still do it at 2.5, but maybe wait a little bit and see if you can get a better number on this. It opened at 3.5. It is 2.5 right now. There might be some threes still out there. I'm not sure. 72% of the tickets and 67% of the cash on Michigan State. I know we're fading Michigan State here, but we're going to talk about the situational aspects of this game in a second, of course, because you know me. I play on games because of the situation, and this is one of them. Michigan State's going to be a very public side here. You know the public's going to be perusing the board here, and you know their eyes are going to be attracted to these games like this. Purdue and, Michigan State, oh, my God. The CBS games here. They're going to look at this game and think it looks so easy to lay 2.5, basically. It's basically like pick the winner. It looks so easy to play Michigan State here, and that is not what we're doing. Why is that the case? Well, Michigan State just had a huge win at Purdue. Teams don't just go into Purdue and beat them, man. It's one does not simply enter MAAC Arena or whatever and beat Purdue. Although this year it's happened 4 times. Like I said, that's a monster win for Michigan State, man. Now they have a second straight road game. They're doing they're doing the Indiana duo here, coming off the huge game of the two. Now, I wish they had Michigan on deck because this would be even better. They have Rutgers in between the two, unfortunately. But Rutgers actually gave Michigan State a scare. So remember, Michigan State, they went to Rutgers, and Rutgers took them to overtime. So Michigan State might actually be looking at that Rutgers game as bigger than this game because Rutgers gave them problems. Indiana did not. They already played Indiana, and they beat them by 21. So I don't think they're really going to take Indiana seriously here. I think at the very least, they're in a major letdown spot. It's a revenge spot for Indiana. And for Indiana, they're coming off a really bad loss at home. They've lost 3 in a row, but they just lost as a favorite, I think, against Northwestern. This is a bad loss for Indiana. They're 9.5-point favorites. So I like playing on teams when they lose at home as a big favorite because usually that was like an outlier type of scenario, and usually you're going to get a much better effort out of that team in the next game, and I think we will from Indiana. Plus, now Indiana's a home underdog, and Indiana's fighting for their tournament lives here, man. So I know people know that Indiana's trying to, fight for the bubble or whatever. They're still going to want to play Michigan State, as everybody knows they're the better team here. But, again, getting points with a team that you're going to get an effort out of, that's what I like, and that's what we're getting here with Indiana. Yeah, I think the line should be a little bit bigger, but Michigan State is also not really a style of team that you want to lay points with on the road. They're not that great offensively. They're much, much better defensively. They're a great defense, and they play slow. So that's not really conducive to laying points on the road. They're pretty lucky, according to KenPom as well. They're in the top 1/3 of the luck index, basically, whereas Indiana is essentially in the bottom third of the luck index. Indiana's a decent team. They're almost in the top 40. They're all right on both ends. They're a bit more balanced than Michigan State is, even though they're better on offense and defense. And I believe they're actually, they're either the better offense or close to the better offense here. Although, you know me, I like the better defense, which of course we don't have here. But Indiana also, believe it or not, plays slow this year, which I'm used to them being a fast-paced team. They're not. So this will probably be a slower game where points are more at a premium. Although the total's gone way up. It's gone up 9 points almost, which is something you rarely see. But if people are expecting this to be a high-scoring game, I actually think that's beneficial to Indiana because Michigan State does not want the tempo to be pushed on them. So maybe Indiana will actually try to speed this thing up. But yes, we're going to go with Indiana in this one. Get the best number that you can on this. I'm going to see if there are any better numbers out here right now. I'm still going to say do it at 2.5. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get better than 2.5 at this point, man. Unfortunately. But we're going to do it anyway because the spot is very conducive to it. So that's what we're doing. All right. To finish this off here, we have Fox Sports 1. Not the greatest Big East matchup here between DePaul and Marquette. DePaul already beat Marquette at home by 5 points at DePaul. DePaul's coming off a decent road win against Creighton that I believe was an upset win. So there are some aspects of this that lead me to leaning towards Marquette here. 3 road games in 4 games is also not very easy for DePaul here, even though they're staying in the Midwest, at least for these purposes. They're going from Omaha up to Milwaukee, and Milwaukee's not that far away from Chicago, which is where DePaul is. DePaul does have Villanova on deck, though, on TV. That's a big game. They get to host Villanova. They might have their eyes set on that, man, and they lost to Villanova before, so that might be a bigger game for them. So you could make the argument this is a bit of a sandwich spot. It is kind of a revenge spot for Marquette. Marquette just ended a losing streak with a win over Georgetown. I believe it was a road upset. So both teams are coming off of upsets here. That was more of a mild upset. At this point, I think Marquette is just not as bad as their record makes them look. Like, people are going to look at this and see Marquette laying 4.5 points, and there's no way the public is going to want Marquette here. Like, why would you lay points with a team with the much worse record, the team that's well below 500? Like, the line looks like it makes no sense, right? But the odds makers are telling you that Marquette is actually better than DePaul, believe it or not. And in a spot like this, yeah, I think Marquette is the right side in this game. That's the way I would lean. The money is not agreeing with me on that one. Marquette, 4.5, 58% of the tickets on them, 60% of the cash on DePaul. I do not agree with that. I would lean towards Marquette in that one. Next up, CBS Sports at 5 p.m. This is my final game in the best bets for college basketball. We are going to play Illinois State on the money line against Belmont here. I like how this one sets up as well, man. Belmont, they have nothing to play for. They've already wrapped up the Missouri Valley. They have a 4-game lead over the next closest teams. Yeah, they already got the 1 seed, man. So this game doesn't really mean that much to them. It means a lot more to Illinois State because they're jockeying for positioning here. They do still have, I think, a shot at getting one of the top 4 seeds, which would mean a bye. So I think you're going to get a bunch of effort out of Illinois State here, man. I think there's a huge motivational disparity in this game. Illinois State is also having their final home game because this conference plays their conference tournament in St. Louis. Arch Madness, man. So it's a neutral location. So Illinois State, this will be their final home game, and it's revenge for Illinois State because Belmont already beat them by 11 at Belmont. And what's interesting is if you dig into the box score of this game, it wasn't really what it looked like. Illinois State out-rebounded Belmont by 9 in this game, and they somehow still lost the game. Why did they lose? Because Belmont shot 58% from the field and 56% from 3. Illinois State actually had more possessions in the game, which is usually a sign that you should win the game. But they had a horrible shooting game, and they only shot 38% from the field and 29% from 3. So that's why they lost. So I think there's going to be some regression here, man. You usually do not see a 20% disparity in field goal percentage. almost 30% from three-point range. That's not going to happen again. Belmont is good at shooting. There's no doubt about that, but this is a game where they don't have as much motivation. Belmont is not good on defense, so I highly doubt that you're going to see that poor of a shooting performance from Illinois State this time. Belmont is a much, much better offensive team, and they're pretty lucky, according to KenPom, even though they are the best KenPom-rated team in the Missouri Valley. They're very good on offense. Defense leaves something to be desired. They play fast, and they're pretty lucky, according to KenPom. They're almost in the top 100 in luck. He's got Illinois State cracking the top 100, though. Not a bad team, and they are the much better defense. They're not that good on offense, but they're much better on defense. So, you know me, I like playing the better defense, man, especially when you're getting the more motivated team. They also slow the game down, so I think it's easier to slow the game down, easier to control the pace when you're at home. So if Illinois State could slow it down, that could also frustrate Belmont. So I don't know, man. Do you really think an unmotivated Belmont team wants to go in here, play a slow, grinding game like this? I don't think they do. And Illinois State is less lucky as well, so we have the luck disparity in our favor here as well. According to KenPom, they're in the bottom third of the luck index. Yeah, it sets up pretty nicely, man, from what I could see. And as far as Illinois State, they did just beat Northern Iowa. I know that was a good win for them. But again, this is their final home game, man. They're going to leave it all on the floor in this one. I think they're going to give you a huge effort here. Yeah, they're coming off an upset win over Northern Iowa, but Belmont will be a bit of a reprieve, to be honest, because Northern Iowa is an excellent defensive team. Belmont is not, so Illinois State's going to get a little bit of a. Illinois State's the better defense here. They're going to get a reprieve. So instead of a, really, really physical game like they probably had against Northern Iowa, which I know. I don't usually like playing teams off a physical game like that, but Illinois State's going to be the one that wants to make this game more physical than Belmont wants to. Belmont, I know they won and covered again, even though they didn't even need the game. They crushed Evansville. Evansville is really bad, though, and Belmont is now going from playing 2 home games against very weak opponents in Indiana State and Evansville to playing Illinois State, man. Last time Belmont played a game against a defense that was this good, yeah, they did put up 91 against Northern Iowa, but that was at home. And it was a game where Belmont actually had motivation, whereas here they do not. So I don't really see that happening again. Yeah, I mean, they've been able to do it like on the road. I know they were able to beat Illinois State at home, put up good numbers there. They've beaten Northern Iowa on the road, put up good numbers in that one too. So I know Belmont is a force offensively, but again, a lot of this comes down to the spot and motivation. And it's all about that. Illinois State, that plus still the better defense. The money is agreeing with me on this. Illinois State has gone from a 1-point dog to a pick'em price here. I would look at both markets, obviously. When you see a number around this price, find the better price. It might be on a pick'em spread play, or it might be on the money line. Find whatever the best number is. 76% of the tickets are on Belmont because the public are idiots. 74% of the cash on Illinois State. Public, I mean, go ahead, man. You can go right ahead and bet a team that does not have motivation. Go ahead and do that. But yes, we're gonna play Illinois State in that one. CBS Sports does have one night game with Charleston and UNC Wilmington. This is a good game in the Colonial. UNC Wilmington has a 1.5 game lead, which I believe means that they've won the conference then, right? Let me see. No, actually. They have 2 games left. So here's how it's going to work out, I think. UNC Wilmington won at Charleston already by 12. So there is a road revenge angle here for Charleston. But now, if UNC Wilmington loses this game, and then they lose to Elon, then I think Charleston actually would overtake them for the conference win, because I think I guess they would have the tiebreaker in that case. So yeah, I don't think UNC Wilmington has wrapped it up. So I think they do still have motivation here. It is still their final home game of the season. So I think you will get a motivated effort out of both teams here. UNC Wilmington staying at home off an easy win over NCAAB. Charleston coming into this game off an easy win as well over Hampton. But this is Charleston's last game of the season, man. But although they will play in the conference tournament, of course. In fact, they are one of the teams that could win this conference. This is their 4th road game in 5 games, though, so I don't love that. That's a lot of travel. So that does help UNC Wilmington. But you're asking a UNC Wilmington team that plays slow, and, I really think I think they do get themselves locked into a lot of ugly, low-scoring games. The total's in the 140s here. Laying 4.5 with UNC Wilmington in a spot like this, where it is road revenge for Charleston. I think the move is to take the points with Charleston in this game if you're going to play the game. Wilmington down from 5.5 to 4 here. 89% of the tickets, 86% of the cash on Wilmington. So they're a very public side with less of the money on them. Public likes the team with a prettier record, man, and that is UNC Wilmington. They only have 4 losses on the season. I think they played a pretty easy out-of-conference schedule, though. So those are my thoughts on that. All right, let's go to the NHL. We have a few NHL games here. I do have a play on one of them. I think there are 6 games. Starting with Vegas and Pittsburgh on TNT at 1 p.m. afternoon action here. Vegas had yesterday off, and they lost at Washington in their last game. So you might get a motivated effort out of Vegas here after I thought it was a bad spot for them going to Washington there. I want to be correct, and I think I disagreed with the market on that one. But now I think Vegas could be in bounce-back mode here. They are the better team, even though people are going to look at this and see Pittsburgh has 30 wins and their record looks pretty, but the odds makers are telling you who the better team is. They're lining Vegas as a minus 150 favorite on the road, so the odds makers are obviously telling you Vegas is significantly better than Pittsburgh. Vegas down from minus 160 to minus 150 here, though. 66% of tickets, 67% of the cash on Vegas, though. So the money is on Vegas. Pittsburgh just pulled off a win lost yesterday at the Rangers, even though I think they had a 2-0 lead in that game, and the Rangers are absolute ass at home. Pittsburgh still wound up losing that game, but now they're on a back-to-back. They're coming back home from that. The rest scenario does favor Vegas here. I would lean to Vegas here as well, man. It is kind of a weird-looking number. Like, the public is definitely going to be a bit misled by that number. I think it'd probably be tempted to play Pittsburgh as the underdog there. I would lean towards Vegas. Chicago at Utah. This is a difficult game to figure out. Utah is going to be a big favorite here. Chicago is not good. The odds makers basically are telling you they're one of the worst teams in the NHL. They've lost both games coming out of the break. They had to play at Colorado yesterday, though, so they're doing the high elevation back-to-back here. That is not easy to do, man. Even though they haven't won and they should be motivated, but, fatigue might set in a little bit here. Although Utah is coming off a monster game against Minnesota, and that was the game. I gave you guys a winner on that one. My return to hockey after the Olympic break. We got a nice, easy armchair winner with Utah there. That was a big win over Minnesota, man. So you could argue Utah is in a letdown spot here, even though they do have one day off, whereas Chicago does not. So this is a game that I'm obviously passing on the game. Utah is a public side, 92% of the tickets, 99% of the cash. Doesn't really mean anything. They're up to a minus 310 favorite here. I mean, if you wanted to take a shot with Chicago on the puck line and try to get them to come within a certain number of goals, I mean, have at it, I guess. I'm not going to be doing it. I don't love the game at all, though. But I would, I guess, probably lean that way. It's a fairly low total as well at around 6. So we'll see. The next game up is the game I actually want. So this is the one best bet in hockey. And we're going to play the Winnipeg Jets. Jets, Jets. Minus 120 on the road. The odds makers are going to look at this and think, the public is going to look at this and think, like, what's going on here? But the odds makers know what they're doing, man. As I keep telling you, San Jose is not as good as their record looks. But the public is going to look at this and think, I'm getting the better team here with San Jose as an underdog at home. Like, how could that be the case, right? So I think the public is going to play the Sharks here. And, everybody's all excited about, Celebrini and these young guys San Jose has. But I'm telling you, that is not the move. The odds makers are telling you Winnipeg is the better team here. And some of that has to do with the fact that they have an elite goalie, Hellebuyck, and I'm assuming, is going to play in this game, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. It does look like he is. I looked at the starting goalies a little while ago, and I believe it will be him. And remember, Winnipeg, Hellebuyck missed a large chunk of the season, man, and Winnipeg lost a lot of the games they had without him. So that's part of the reason why Winnipeg has such a bad record. Like, this Winnipeg team has not had that much of a fall off from last year, okay? Even though last year they overperformed they're not that much worse this year than they were last year. Now, Winnipeg is playing a third road game in the last, 5 days, I guess. I'm not too concerned by that because they're 1-1 on the road trip, and I know they played overtime games in the first two, but playing an overtime game against Vancouver basically tells you that you didn't play well. Hellebuyck did not play in that game, so he's only played once since the Olympics, and he didn't have a good game against Anaheim. They lost in overtime. Hellebuyck was good early in that game. Winnipeg had a 3-1 lead in the game, and they wound up blowing it. But I think this is good because that means Hellebuyck gets that game out of the way. You know what I mean? That was the letdown spot, I think, if you will, for Hellebuyck there, because he was coming out of that huge performance in the gold medal game. I think it kind of made sense that he was going to have a little bit of a worse effort there, but I think he bounces back in this one, man. I think we get a better effort out of him this time. They're staying in the state of California here with 1 day off, so I don't mind that. But look at the spot for San Jose. San Jose just beat the Oilers yesterday, and unfortunately that did not make my card because you remember that was my second strongest hockey lean yesterday. San Jose got the win. You remember my reasoning behind that. San Jose had a horrible loss the game before that to Calgary. So, by the way, that means San Jose at home, they could lose to anybody at home because Calgary is ass. Winnipeg is better than Calgary. So I thought it was a good bounce-back spot for San Jose. And Edmonton was coming off an 8-1 win, if you remember, over, I believe, L.A. So both games that were the, flip the script games yesterday, both won. Unfortunately, and my pick, of course, is a loser. And then both these other ones won. I think Calgary, after they got that win, I think they lost yesterday. And L.A. bounced back after they had lost horribly to Edmonton. I think L.A. did win yesterday. But San Jose, huge win over Edmonton yesterday, man. And now they're on a back-to-back. So I'm assuming that means Nedeljkovic will be back in net here. I don't really care which goalie San Jose has. I think Nedeljkovic might actually be slightly better than Askarov, although Askarov has been playing better, or Askarov, I don't know how you pronounce his name. He's been playing better recently, though, which is why they've kind of made him their primary goalie. But I'm fine with it because Nedeljkovic, here's what I like about this. You got Hellebuyck, who he played in the gold medal game, and he played a game already after that in his letdown spot. So that's already out of his system. He's already shed the rust and whatever. He doesn't have rest. But if Nedeljkovic is going to be in net here, he might be rusty as hell, man. He hasn't played since January 31st in an actual game. So you might get a really, really rusty goaltender situation in this one for San Jose. So I think that's a big problem for San Jose here. Yeah, I like Winnipeg here, man, for all those reasons. Winnipeg did initially drop from -125 to -115. I don't see anything below -120, but maybe you'll find a better price. 59% of the tickets are on San Jose, 74% of the cash on Winnipeg. So the money is indicating on Winnipeg. I agree with it. That will be my hockey play. Winnipeg money line. All right. St. Louis at Minnesota, and I apologize. I forgot to wear my Mammoth jersey the other day after they won. I was too distracted. That was yesterday. They won 2 days ago, but yesterday I could have worn it in honor of their win. But I had to do the college basketball show. I was up against it. I'm like, whatever. I just got to get these shows out. All right, St. Louis at Minnesota. St. Louis coming into this off a 3-1 loss at home to New Jersey. That was yesterday, though, so they aren't a back-to-back. So something to keep in mind there. Minnesota is coming off a pretty ugly loss to Utah. They're returning home from a road trip, but it was only a Thursday-Friday road trip. They had yesterday off. Now they're back home. But they do have Tampa Bay on deck in a huge TV game. They got Tampa, Vegas, Colorado all upcoming. So, it's not exactly the greatest spot for Minnesota. They dropped from -250 to -245. I do think Minnesota's a bit of an overrated team. 94% of tickets, 99% of the cash on them. Probably not accurate, of course, but I struggle with this game. I might lean towards a St. Louis puck line in that one, but I don't want anything to do with it. And you still might get an effort out of Minnesota, possibly, just because they lost pretty badly in Utah. So I don't know, man. Tough game to read. ESPN at 6:30 p.m. has Florida at the Islanders, and this caught my eye because look at the line in this game. Florida is -142, even though they're on the road at the Islanders. And the Islanders have the better-looking record. So the public is probably going to look at this and think, oh, my God, I'm getting the team with the better record. at home as an underdog. It looks kind of easy to play the Islanders in this one, so I would probably not do that. Florida did play yesterday, though. So they're on a back-to-back. They played at home. Or no, they didn't. My mistake. They did not play yesterday. My mistake. They played on... I was like, no way they're traveling from Florida here with no time off. No, they played in Florida on Friday. They lost to Buffalo. Now, Buffalo is a decent team, although Florida was a decent-sized favorite in that game. So they did still suffer an upset at home. Maybe it would be good for them to just go out on the road, focus on hockey here. For the Islanders, they played yesterday, unfortunately, beating me, going into overtime, and they used Sorokin in net. So that means they're going to have a rusty goaltender here in this one, man. So that's something you got to look at. It's not a scenario that comes up often, man, but because of the Olympic break, you might be able to do the same thing with the All-Star break. You can find these situations where a second-string goalie is coming in, and they're going to be rusty. In this case, Rittich, I think, is likely to play here, and he hasn't played since February 2nd. And by the way, they lost that game. They've lost 3 of his last 4 games, 4 of his last 5, actually. So the Islanders are significantly worse with Rittich in net, and that does have something to do with why Florida is such a big favorite here. But the Islanders are coming off 2 straight overtime games, playing a 3rd game in 4 days, all in different cities, with both of those other 2 being in overtime. Yeah, I would lean to Florida in this game, man. The money seems like it is agreeing. They're up to minus 144. From minus 135, 69% of the tickets, 71% of the cash. So the public is not staying off of Florida as much as I thought they would be, but I think the actual money is on Florida, and I agree with Florida in that game. Calgary at Anaheim. Calgary, yes, they did take the loss yesterday, like I said, after they had that win over San Jose. They lost at LA yesterday. They're playing a 3rd game in 4 days now, all in different cities and a back-to-back, although they are only going from LA to Anaheim here, which is not horrible. Anaheim did just beat Winnipeg, like I said, in overtime. That was 2 days ago, after beating Edmonton. So I thought they could be potentially in a letdown spot, but I also didn't love the idea of jumping on Hellebuck, of course, in his first game out of the gold medal game. So Anaheim beat him in overtime. Now they have this game against Calgary, who they just beat on the road, by the way, on January 25th. It was an overtime game, but Anaheim still might not take them totally seriously when they have to play Colorado and then the Islanders and then the Canadiens all in a row after this. Those are all bigger games than this. So I would lean to Calgary in this game, although I know Anaheim's a good home team. They're up from minus 165 to minus 175. I don't really see the percentages on this yet, but it would probably be like a split puck line, money line play for me on Calgary if I was going to do anything with that. I don't do much with totals, man. I'm a side guy, except not when I order food. I'm not going to order just sides when I order food. All right, let's go to the NBA. We got like 12 NBA games today. I think maybe 11. ABC has a pretty interesting doubleheader here. The first game up is a pretty good one with the Spurs at the Knicks at 1 p.m. Eastern. Spurs, I believe that they might be in first place now in the they're really close record-wise to the Thunder, man. I don't know which one of the teams has the 1 seed right now in the West. Spurs are playing really, really well, though. They've won 11 games in a row now. They're staying in New York. They just beat Brooklyn, and they have time off because they haven't played since Thursday. So they have 2 days off, which you might argue might hurt their momentum a little bit. But they're just kind of rolling right now. I think they will still have momentum. You know you're going to get a huge effort out of them here in this game. And I actually think the spot is worse for the Knicks because they're returning home from a road trip. And you know what I say about that? It's not a long road trip, really, but it was a week long. They only went to Chicago, Cleveland, and Milwaukee, but still a road trip that had them gone for a week. When you come back home, it can be a distraction, man. You got stuff to do back at home, especially when you have to go right back out on the road, which they do have to go to Toronto. By the way, that might be a spot to eye, although I think Toronto might be returning home from a road trip there, so I'd worry about that. But the Knicks are going to be in a sandwich between the Spurs and the Thunder in that game against Toronto, so that doesn't look great. Weird travel spot there for them. But when you come back home and you don't have that much time to get stuff done at home and you have to go right back out on the road, I don't love that spot. Even though the Knicks, they should theoretically show up for a game against San Antonio. And the Knicks should be a little bit rested because they did have a couple of days off prior to their Milwaukee game. which was kind of a cakewalk, a cake Milwaukee. They crushed Milwaukee in their last game, but I would lean to the Spurs in this one. And interestingly, the odds makers are actually telling you the Spurs are the better team because they're a favorite, although they dropped from -1.5 to a pick 'em here. We see 50-50 on the tickets and on the cash right now, but I think I prefer the Spurs in this game. I have not looked at the injury report here. It looks like it's just Miles McBride for the Knicks. He's been out for quite a while. Spurs, it's kind of the same injury report for them too. Plumlee, I think, is he out because of the gambling thing? I forget. Not injury related. He's been out for a long time anyway, though. So, speaking of these Duke players, but yeah, those are my thoughts on that. Sides do I like? I can't have a side chick when I don't have a main chick, baby. They're all side chicks to me. They're all just chicks. It's like the Dixie Chicks. I just dropped the side from the name. I do like side boob, yes. Under boob, I think I prefer, though. I don't know. There's something about under boob where it's kind of like, I don't know. It's like the shirt is like an inch away from like the big reveal. You know what I mean? The under boob is better, I think. Yeah. And then, full boob, obviously. All right. Next up is going to be one of my plays. This is ugly, man. I know I'm going right back to what I did before. I'm going to one of the same teams that killed me the other day. But, I just did that with the Wizards, and they got it done for me. So let's do it with this one. You know where I'm going with this. Yeah, we're doing it, man. We're taking the Brooklyn Nets plus 12 against Cleveland. I think, Brooklyn, say what you want to say, this team might be tanking, whatever, but if you get a home game against one of the top teams in the conference, I think you will have some effort in a game like this. And the spot for Cleveland is so bad. I think I have to do it, man. Cleveland just beat Brooklyn in Cleveland by almost 30 points. So they're not going to take Brooklyn seriously, man. That was back on February 19th. It was the first game out of the All-Star break. They crushed Brooklyn. So I don't think they're going to pay attention to Brooklyn. And look at what Cleveland has done, man. They just had to play an overtime game against Detroit where they fell short on the road at Detroit. That was a big game where I think Cleveland was an underdog here. By 8.5. So that makes it even crazier because, I talk about this. Not only was it a big game, but when you're a big underdog and you take a team into overtime like that, I think you're going to be flat more often than not in the next game. So we have that going on here. Even though I guess you could argue, well, Cleveland wants to at least get a win on this road trip, man. I'm not so sure about that because they're in a Detroit sandwich, man. They come back home and they got to play Detroit again on Tuesday. That's going to be a monster game. And then they have the Celtics after a bunch of days off. Unfortunately for me, I'm pissed about this scheduling, man. Cleveland has that much rest before they play the Celtics. That is bullshit. But they will play the Celtics on TV on ABC on Sunday, and then they have Philadelphia after that, and then a TV game against Orlando. So this is like clearly a flat spot in the schedule for them, and Brooklyn is coming off an embarrassing game against the Celtics, man. The Celtics, by some metrics, had the best offensive performance in NBA history in that game based on some combination of field goal percentage, three-point percentage, and offensive rebounds. The Celtics had the best offensive performance in NBA history in that game, and that's why we lost with the Brooklyn Nets there. Is that really what we expected there? I'm going to say no. Brooklyn has put up over 110, at least 110 points in 3 straight games, so they're coming out and scoring, man. Even against a good defensive team like the Celtics, they're scoring. So, I think Brooklyn is still giving you an effort, man. And that was a trip to Boston. Now they're back in New York. They've had a day off. Both teams have had a day off, but still, horrible spot for Cleveland. They're in a Detroit sandwich here. I don't know what sandwiches they eat in Detroit, but somebody could probably inform me. There's probably something. I like Detroit pizza. I don't know about they're in a Cleveland sandwich. What am I saying? No, Cleveland is in a Detroit sandwich. Yes, Cleveland is in a Detroit sandwich. Cleveland has 78% of tickets, 81% of the cash on them. They're up from 11 to 12 here. They're going to be a public side. This is an afternoon game, whatever. We're taking the Nets there, man. We're fading the public and doing that as well. That's true. They're not breaking down my door. Well, some of them are, but I also have a harem, and these chicks are trying to get into it. Bucks at Bulls here, Milwaukee at Chicago. I don't have a whole lot to say about this one. The Bucks just took a bad loss to the Knicks. Maybe they'll show up after a really bad loss like that. The Bucks were actually trying. Prior to that, they'd won 5 of 6. So the Bucks are actually giving you effort here, even without Giannis. And maybe they will give you an effort here, whereas Chicago, they don't look good. They screwed me the other day, taking another loss. Chicago's lost a lot of games in a row, 11 games in a row. I don't know if that's going to change. They did just lose to Portland in a somewhat closer game. They almost covered for me. They got Oklahoma City on deck. I don't know, man. This is a tough game to figure out. I don't want anything to do with it. The money is coming into the Bulls. Again, I think tanking is just an overused term, though. You know what I mean? The tanking comes from more an organizational level, and it could be like the coach benching everybody and whatever. Bucks are down from 3.5 to 3 here, so they are actually a road favorite here. 52% of tickets, 91% of the cash on the Bulls. Money is coming into the Bulls. I have nothing to really say about it. The Bulls do have a bunch of injuries, though. Simons is still out. Smith is still out. Very, very injured Bull team here, which is probably why the Bucks are a favorite like that, even without Giannis. But, the money is saying the Bulls. I don't want to do it. Donovan Mitchell, by the way, is still out for Cleveland. I forgot to mention that. So, no change there as far as, is there like an injured player theory spot or anything like that here? Mitchell's already missed a game or two, so he's out for Cleveland. Harden is questionable, but I'm expecting that he will play. Although at this point, if he doesn't, then you'll get line value on the Nets at least because the line will drop towards game time. And that did happen the last time I faded Cleveland. You remember, I gave you guys the Bucks, and the line dropped from 9 to 2.5. And luckily, they covered every number. That was because Mitchell, was ruled out, and I think he hasn't played since the game prior to that. And I think Harden, they wound up deciding to rest Harden in that game too. All right, Minnesota at Denver. This is the other ABC game, the afternoon doubleheader. This is at 3:30 p.m. This is an interesting game. Minnesota just had kind of an ugly-looking win where neither team scored 100 points. They won at L.A., but I like that. When a team wins and they don't look good in doing so, I think they get undervalued in the next game, you know what I mean? Because the public is not going to be impressed. Oh, you won a 94-88 game. What is this, the 90s? But I like that. When a team doesn't look good in a win, their momentum continues, and I think they're going to be undervalued. They're going into Denver here. I know it's an elevation game, but they've had a couple of days off. I don't think that will disrupt their momentum that much, and I do not like the spot for Denver. Denver, after beating Boston again, unfortunately, they went to Oklahoma City on Friday, and they took OKC to overtime in SGA's return. And I told you, reverse injured player spot. I thought Oklahoma City was going to have to adjust a little bit, get used to SGA being back, and Denver could have won that game outright. Oklahoma City came close to covering in overtime. Denver still covered, but that was a monster game for Denver, dude. Now, I know this is a big game as well against Minnesota, but Denver's coming off the much higher effort games here, so I would have to lean towards Minnesota in this one. The Nuggets are getting the money, and I do not agree with that. This game almost made my card. I like the Wolves. 61% of tickets, 83% of the cash on the Nuggets. They're up to a 3-point favorite. I don't really see much going on with the injury report. I saw that Randall was a game-time decision. I think he's going to play, though. I mean, it's a huge game, a TV game. If he can get out there, he'll get out there. For Denver, I think Murray will play here. I don't know if he played in the last game or not, but basically Aaron Gordon is still out for them. And then, they do have some injuries piling up on the Nuggets side. But the Nuggets, they're also not that good at home. They're 16-11 at home, which is fine, but not as good as you would think with that elevation edge. And Minnesota's pretty good on the road, 17-12. NBA teams are usually not far above 500 on the road, but Minnesota's been a pretty good road team. So, yeah, I like Minnesota in that one, man. Memphis at Indiana. Memphis coming off beating Dallas. So Memphis actually has showed something, finally, getting a win there. This Memphis team, after they unloaded a bunch of guys at the trade deadline, they shut down some of their injured players. Morant is a chemistry issue, whatever. They've been playing with all backups, basically, but they finally did get the win over Dallas. Now they're going to Indiana, though, and they might catch Indiana in kind of a foul mood. because Indiana's coming off a really bad loss to Charlotte. Indiana's gotten blown out in a couple of games. They've given up over 130 points in 4 straight games. At some point, I think you got to play for something, man. And Indiana's staying at home, and they haven't played since Thursday. Maybe that can help break that losing momentum there. I think I lean to the Pacers in this game. The money is saying the Grizzlies. I think it's going to be hard to gauge, like, which team is going to be more motivated here. You know what I mean? As they play out the stretch. Pacers flip from a 2-point dog to a 1-point favorite here. 70% of the tickets are on them, though, and 81% of the cash on the Grizzlies. So the market read is saying the Grizzlies, but I don't really agree with that. All right, Portland at Atlanta. Portland did just lose at Charlotte. Charlotte, they've been hot, man. I didn't really think Charlotte should be that big of a favorite, but they covered anyway. Portland, that was yesterday, too. So Portland's on a back-to-back. They're playing a 4th game in 6 days. Actually, a 5th game in 8 days, all in different cities, which is not easy to do. They had 1 home game in the mix there. Very, very bizarre. So the travel spot for Portland is very weird. A rare 5th and 7 with, or no, 5th and 8, excuse me. It's a 5th and 8, but with all different cities. That's kind of difficult. Whereas for Atlanta, they're just staying at home, coming off easy wins over Washington. The situational setup is a lot better for Atlanta here, man. Other than the fact that you think they might get a little bit rusty because they haven't played since Thursday. But having 2 days off, I don't think is that big of a deal. It's not an extended break. So I would have to lean to the Hawks in this one. They're down from 6 to 5 here. 64% of tickets, 89% of the cash on them. Yeah, I would lay it if I was going to play it in that game. Next game up will be my other play. I told you we have 2 sandwiches, and I accidentally gave it away. That we're going to play the Orlando Magic here, plus 5.5. Or I guess it might be 5 at a lot of spots, but hopefully there's not much of a difference there between those 2 numbers. I see 4.5 showing up as well. Get the best number that you can on this, obviously. I think try to get at least 5. I think you probably can, but we got Detroit in the other end of that sandwich, man. We're fading Detroit. I know how difficult that looks, but, dude, Detroit, they might start coasting at some point, man. Even though they're playing for seeding against, the Celtics and the Knicks, still trying to maintain the 1 seed, but they got a pretty big lead over all those teams. They got an 8.5 game lead over Cleveland now in the Central Division, and I think Detroit is probably at least, I would say, 4 games ahead of the Knicks and the Celtics. I don't know exactly where they are, but Detroit, they got some nice padding here, man. And Detroit's coming off that huge win over Cleveland, and not only that, but it's actually worse because look at Detroit's lead up to this game. Detroit had to play San Antonio on Monday. Then they played Oklahoma City in the middle of the week and beat them. And then they played Cleveland. And, yeah, all those games were at home. But huge games, all 3 of them. And they beat Cleveland in overtime. Now they're going on the road. And I know I'll say a lot of times when you start a road trip, you will be focused to try to get the road trip off on the right foot. I don't think that's the case here, man. I think this is a sandwich spot. And then look who they have up next after that. Oh, yeah, they have Cleveland again. So they're in a Cleveland sandwich, which I guess is, some big, Dagwood sandwich or something. Maybe that's more of a Columbus thing. I don't know. But a big sandwich piled high with deli meat. I don't know. It's more of a New York thing, too. The Katz's Deli. But whatever you want to call this is a Cleveland sandwich. I don't know if they're really going to pay that much attention to a fairly struggling Magic team here. And after Cleveland, by the way, after they play Cleveland again, they got to play San Antonio in revenge right after that. So this is clearly like a down spot in the schedule. This is a mega sandwich. For Orlando, I think they're in a positive spot because they just lost to Houston. I know that was a tough game. It was a close game, but they've been off now since Thursday. And look at the situational spot, though. Orlando returned home from a road trip. They were on the road for a week, going out to the Pacific Coast. And you know how difficult I always talk about how those road trip returns are. So even though, yeah, they did get up for the game against Houston, it was a big game, they still fell short. And a lot of times I talk about it when a team returns home from a road trip, they get distracted because they have to get stuff done, whatever. But if they don't do that well in the first game, although, yeah, they did do pretty well, but even so, a lot of times they'll be able to get the stuff done after the game or whatever. They'll refocus and they'll give you a much better game in the next game. I think that's what we're going to get here. I like the Magic here. Hopefully they give us some magic in this game. Franz Wagner is still out, unfortunately, for Orlando, but I think Suggs has been back for a little bit now, so Not a whole lot going on with the injury report here, although we still have that one suspension on the Detroit side. Suggs did play in the Houston game. He only played 13 minutes, but I like that because he had been injured and he returned and they kind of eased him back into the game. So I like that too. So this won't be a reverse injured player spot. I like that when they kind of ease the guy back in and then you can kind of more like slowly readjust to your roles or whatever. So I expect a much better game from Suggs this time as well and more minutes from him. He only played 13 minutes and had one field goal make. So I think he'll be a much bigger part of this game. We're going to be on the Magic. 63% of the tickets are on the Pistons. 62% of the cash, though, on Orlando. And the number dropped from 6 to 5.5 here. But the money is saying the Magic. I'm agreeing with it. We will be on the Magic. My Boston Celtics get the primetime night game on NBC and Peacock against the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers are coming off a win over Miami. They haven't played since Thursday, so they do have rest coming into this. And, they should be focused, although you're dealing with, a Philly team that has Paul George suspended. We don't know if Embiid is going to play because we never know. The Celtics, they're staying at home off a nice, easy win over Brooklyn. But the problem with the Celtics is that nobody's going to put in that big of a performance every single time. You know what I mean? Like, that was a historic effort from the Celtics, shooting like 60-something% from the field, 65% from three. There's going to be some regression there. Now, am I saying the Celtics are going to lose this game outright? Not necessarily. I mean, it's possible, I guess. Hopefully that's not the case. I hope they win this game. But I never want to play on a team that's coming off a ridiculous offensive effort like this. By the way, shout out to Vucevic, who played a really good game in that one. Nice 20-10 performance from him in that game. Decent pickup for the Celtics, although with a move that they made like that, they're basically trying to win right now because Vucevic is not young, man, but a good game from him in that one, man. So I like that. Celtics are a 9.5-point favorite here, up from 8.5, but they have 69% of the tickets on them, 54% of the cash on the Sixers. I agree with the Sixers side in that one. I would take the points, unfortunately, but I just hope the Celtics win, man. Oklahoma City at Dallas. Oklahoma City, big overtime win against Denver. Now, that was SGA's return, and, I talk about when a team has, their star player returning for the first time, a lot of times they don't do as well, and then that second game that he's back, they'll do a lot better. So they are in that situation, and they did almost lose as a home favorite, a big home favorite. So we do have that going for Oklahoma City. A lot of times when you have a game, like a close game is a big favorite, a lot of times you will refocus. But I could see them being in a letdown spot because that was a big win over Denver, man. Now they're going to play this Dallas team that really isn't that great. And Dallas, they're easy to overlook, I should say. But Dallas, they're not as bad as maybe you think, I would say, because in that long losing streak they had, they lost to all good teams. But I guess maybe I could be wrong because now they've lost to two really bad teams in Sacramento and Memphis. So Dallas basically just lost to two teams of backups. But this is the NBA and weird shit happens. Dallas staying at home off of two really, really hideous losses. It looks like maybe Flagg missed those games. Is Flagg out? Let me see. He is. He's out until March 3rd. So Flagg is out. So that's something to flag. Something to keep in mind. So, yeah, that's part of the reason why Dallas has been losing is they're without Flagg. But they will be today, too. But the Thunder are laying 15.5 here, man. I would probably take the points with Dallas here. I mean, again, weird shit does happen. I think the spot is better for Dallas. 68% of the tickets are on Oklahoma City, 61% of the cash on Dallas. So there is a ticket versus cash disparity there. Do I actually want to do it? No. But that is the way that I would lean there. New Orleans at the Clippers. New Orleans has won 4 games in a row. This New Orleans team, probably not as bad as people think they are. I don't know what's going on. Is Zion hurt? I don't know what's going on with Zion, man. No, I guess he's not. He's just not factoring into the box score whole. Well, maybe he got injured in this last game. I don't know. I'll look at the injury report in a second. But New Orleans coming into this game on, a nice win streak, 4 straight games. So they're coming out of elevation now, where they beat Utah twice, including yesterday. So they're playing a third game in 4 days. Two of them in Utah, now playing the Clippers, and they do have the Lakers on deck. Teams might still overlook the Clippers a bit because they have a bad record. They've lost 3 games in a row. They are staying at home, but they are coming off a bigger game against Minnesota. But they had a lot of rest prior to that game. So they're a pretty rested team with a lot less travel here. So there are some advantages to the Clippers here. They're up to a 9-point favorite. 57% of tickets on the Clippers, but 59% of the cash on the Pelicans. So the money is saying Pelicans here. I guess if you're going with the angle that the Clippers are coming off a big game where they fell just short against Minnesota, I guess I could see that argument, but that's not a game I'm going to be interested in. Yes, I do know the flag fan base. I mean, yeah, I don't know if you could say it or not. YouTube might not censor that because it's a misspelling of the word. Dirty Sock, what's up? Thanks for hanging out. All right, final game is Sacramento at the Lakers. We know Sacramento, they're playing with all backups here, although they do have Russell Westbrook playing, which is kind of hilarious that they have him towards the end of his career. They're actually playing okay, though. They've won 2 of their last 3, which isn't that bad. Coming into this game, they've had some time off. Haven't played since Thursday. They do have to travel to the Pacific Coast for this. They're catching the Lakers off a nice win against Golden State, although it was without Curry for Golden State. The Lakers are returning home from a 2-game road trip, which isn't that big of a deal. But I don't know how much effort they're really going to put in against a Sacramento team. It's still very overlookable. You could argue the Lakers are in kind of a letdown spot of a Golden State. They only play New Orleans next, so that's not a big deal. Not a game I want anything to do with. The Lakers are getting the money, it looks like. They're up to a 12.5-point favorite from 11.5. 74% of tickets, 94% of the cash on the Lakers. They're getting the money, but I don't know. I would maybe slightly lean towards fading them and taking the points. This Lakers defense is still not good, man. So I don't know. They are offensively capable of beating any team, pretty much beating any team by this margin, though, especially a really bad team like the Kings, a team that has, their best players are not coming back this season. So that's going to do it, man. That's my breakdown for today. Once again, the plays today, college basketball, we're going to take the points with Indiana. I was hoping we could find the 3.5 coming back there, but we might not find it. Illinois State on the money line or to pick them, whichever gives you the better price. Hockey, we got Winnipeg on the money line. And then NBA, we're playing 2 sandwich spots. We're playing the Nets again, plus the points, and we're playing the Magic plus the points. That's going to do it, man. Let's have a winning day today. As always, that is the goal. Let's get it done. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. Learn to Toad on Twitter. You can subscribe to me there if you want to throw me some support that way. That's appreciated. You get a group chat with me, although it's not that active right now because we only have a few people in it. Jeffrey is in it, but shout out to Jeffrey. Dude, I hope he's all right. I don't know where he's at right now. Haven't seen him in a while in the chat. Maybe after football season, he might become disinterested, man. I don't know. He seems to like NBA, though, and NHL, and college basketball, and NHL, so I don't know. Anyway, yeah, Learn to Toad on Instagram as well. You get my short betting videos there. Subscribe to the channel here, of course. Boost this thing, man. I want to try to get to not only 500, but 1,000 and keep ramping this thing up and have it snowball. Let's go, baby. I'm trying some things out with the new title here. Let's see if that attracts the eyes. You can go listen on audio as well. That helps me out on Spotify and Apple. Give me good reviews over there. Covered in Uke is my Uke channel on YouTube. I did do a Neil Sedaka tribute, which I haven't put up on the YouTube yet. So that'll be up at some point. Maybe I'll try to get it up there today on YouTube. But check that out. Subscribe to that channel over there too. Try to boost that up. Patreon.com/LearnToToad. And you can throw me support that way if you want to. Get some bonus content there. There's a Uke Spotify feed on there. A Uke podcast. And you can request stuff from me. And Losercast will be back on Tuesday with a new episode. You can check that out as well. The comedy podcast. That's going to do it. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. And I'll be back, tomorrow. I don't know when I'm going to do the show tomorrow because I do have to go to the bank to have some financial discussions, decide what I'm going to do here. I'm gonna tell them I'm becoming a professional bettor, and they're gonna be like, Yeah, something like that. All right. That's going to do it. Peace for now, guys.